What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is my review for two films, and they are the Baahubali films. They are two Tollywood films, which is a form of India cinema. The first entry, Baahubali The Beginning, came out in 2015. It is 159 minutes long, and the second entry, Baahubali 2, The Conclusion, came out in 2017 and is 167 minutes in length. And the question of the day, why am I reviewing these films? Well, multitude of reasons. The first one being is that recently I was talking to a friend about Indian cinema, and in talking about it, I realized how passionate I am about Indian cinema, despite not watching a lot of it. And by that, I mean that over the course of the last decade, I'll usually watch 2 or 3 a year. And I do think that I should probably watch more, but I first fell in love with Indian cinema with Three Idiots, which is the only Indian cinema film that I own, unfortunately, because it just hasn't really reached physical media in America. But Three Idiots, I immediately fell in love with it because I just saw all the passion, the craft, the blending of genres was just so seamless. And I also really appreciated the length and how they really put a lot of care into all the characters. So I immediately went on a venture and started watching, like I said, a couple Indian films a year. And this year I was like, you know what, I'm going to start off the year and watching these two films, the Baahubali films, because I've heard a lot of great things about them. And also I just think that some people on my channel might not really know much about Indian cinema, so why not have them, watch these films, and which is why I'm going to be recommending them. But also, and most importantly, I wanted to watch these two films because they are directed by S.S. Rajamouli, the same director that did RRR. And I apologize in advance if I mispronounce any of these names, including the actors, the directors, and even the titles. I'm working on it, though. I'm working on it. But anyways, yeah, S.S. Rajamouli, I really liked his work with RRR. That was a film that I saw 3 times. I really dug it. It got better with each viewing. And so I heard from other viewers that the Baahubali films are as good as RRR, if not better. So I definitely wanted to check them out. And thankfully, in America, they are on Netflix. So this is your cue to watch them. But I want to first talk about Indian cinema in general. So there is something called masala films. Masala films, if you're not familiar, this is a style of Indian cinema where it's blending multiple genres. And this is something that, for those unfamiliar with this kind of filmmaking, it might be kind of off-putting. And for me, it's something that I really embrace because, as I mentioned earlier, something like Three Idiots or even these films, blending all these different genres together, it really creates a smorgasbord of a film. And by that, I mean you get every single ingredient in films. And I really admire that because when you put all those ingredients together, it can sometimes not work. But if you have a director and a cast and crew that really is putting all their heart into it, and you as a viewer can see that, you can't help but get caught up in it, at least for me personally. And for these films, I definitely felt that. I really enjoyed both of these films, but I wanted to first talk about Baahubali The Beginning, which I will not be talking about the premise because these films you want to go into as blind as possible. What I will say is this. If you want to know the premise, I'm going to put it in the description down below. But Baahubali The Beginning, it is a film that's long, but it never feels its length because, again, there is a constant bombardment of things happening. You as a viewer have to pay attention. You do, because there's so much going on. But thankfully, we have a cast that is game. 3 people that were standouts for me personally was an actor, Prabhas. He plays the lead character. He has so much charisma, so much machimos that really I couldn't help but appreciate. I really cared about his character. There's a lot of heart, not only with the performance, but a lot of depth given to the writing. I also liked Rain Dugabale, who plays the villain, and he's really good. I think that it's interesting because these two actors, they're like a juxtaposition of each other where they're both charismatic, but for different reasons. And they both also are, whenever they're on screen, you can't help but get really attached to them and see, with what they're doing. And you understand both of their viewpoints, which I also thought was fascinating. And then I think that Tamanna, she's really good. I really liked her performance. I think that she was given just enough to where she was able to stand out, but she was quite good. There is a problematic scene involving her character in Baahubali The Beginning. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. But that aside, I really enjoyed Baahubali The Beginning. That and the CGI, which I want to talk about because I feel kind of conflicted. On one hand, yes, the CGI in both of these films are kind of dodgy. They are. That's just the bottom line. But here's the thing. On one hand, I do understand why it's dodgy. It's because in India, animals are very, very important. They're sacred. So it's one of those things where would you actually want to make them as realistic as possible and then viewers having to see these animals die? Probably not. So on one hand, I get that. I get why they're not super realistic. And for me, I'm honestly able to give them a pass. But I will say certain things such as like fire, which I understand fire is very hard in terms of like CGI, stuff like that, that was kind of like, the hues were a little off. Those are things that in terms of it being dodgy, I wasn't able to nearly give a pass. But it's one of those things where I kind of feel conflicted about it. I understand why it's dodgy, but at the same time, it did take me out at times, even though for the most part, I was still thoroughly invested in this film. So Baahubali at the beginning, I really liked it. I thought that what was so great about it not only was the blending of genres, but it was that there's an ending battle that is just, it's so epic. It's so good. And the ending is like a mic drop. Like it really sets up part two in such a way where you're like, okay, I'm satisfied by this first entry. I am, but I have some questions. And thankfully, part two, Baahubali 2, the conclusion, it answers those questions. But at the same time, what I especially appreciated about both of these entries is that there's a lot of present day stuff, but there is also a lot of flashback scenes. And the flashbacks are extensive, like very, very extensive. Sometimes to the point of where I forgot about the present day stuff. So when they finally get back to the present day stuff, at least in the films, I was like, oh yeah. I forgot that these were all flashbacks. It's very fascinating because sometimes in films I'll watch flashbacks and then I'll go back and forth between flashbacks and present day. And it can kind of be a bit off-putting because you're not able to get fully invested. But in these flashback scenes, you get really invested. And that's just it. You care about these characters. You care about with what they're, going through. And that's just it. These characters are fully fleshed out. Love the score. The score in these films are fascinating. Love the musical numbers. Love the cinematography. Love the pacing. These films are long, but I never felt the length in either of these two entries. And I gotta say, I don't know which one I liked more. I don't. I think that both of them work really well. They are action films, war films, coming of age, melodrama, romance, swashbuckling, westerns at times. It is the full picture. If you want a film, films in this case, that give you everything that you could ask for, these are it. But I will say this, again, I want to emphasize this. If you are someone that does not like quote-unquote unrealistic films, this is not the films for you. But for me, I look at realism in the lens of the films. If the films have established what their idea of realism is, and they adhere to those guidelines, I'm okay with it. And these films, they adhere to their own form of realism. So I'm okay with it. But again, not going to be for everyone. But again, if you're on these films' wavelengths, they are a lot of fun. And I would highly recommend both of the Baahubali films. And honestly, I don't know which one I liked better, as I mentioned, which is why I'm giving them both the same rating. So for me, Baahubali at the beginning and Baahubali 2 the conclusion, I'll be giving a... Yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts on the Baahubali films. I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts. I, again, thoroughly enjoyed them, and I'm looking forward to rewatching them because I can definitely see myself watching them again, and similar to like RRR, getting more from them, but also really, really enjoying them even more so. But what a blast. I had a blast with both of these films. Please, watch these two films if you haven't done so already. And guys, thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done so already, don't forget the subscription, notification bell, follow me down Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.